Hi guys, I am back for another lawful video. I just wanted to share some of my experiences out here in the world. Um, it's been a couple of years now, actually. Maybe it was last year that I got a traffic citation, but I have been learning some things again about law and realized that the sheriffs, the police department, and the state troopers are actually operating on behalf of a federal corporate government. And the entire government system is a corporation. So when they actually pull you over and try to cite you for traffic violations, for example, they're really just trying to get you to consent to contract with them and to basically say that you are a corporate entity, a corporate person. There are actually legalese words, which are trickery words that trick people into consenting to contract with this corporate state. But if you are savvy enough to have some knowledge, you can actually thwart their efforts and you can get out free and clear from these road pirates because our laws supersede all laws of a corporate nature. Now, this is not legal advice, and I am not a lawyer, and I am not an attorney, but I have learned some things, and I've learned that my power as a living woman actually holds much higher standard than that of a corporate entity. And when I found all this information, I decided to try it out for myself just to see if it would work. And guess what? It does. And that's when my eyes opened up wider to realize all the mess that we are in with all the corporate blanketed laws that are operating as the de facto corporate government, and that they're operating actually in what's called under the color of law, and it's all actually a bunch of lies. It's like a deceit to the minds of the masses. So, to avoid all of their court systems is the best thing to do. But if you ever have to go to court, just know that the corporate state cannot contract with you unless they get your consent. These are the things that I've learned. There are actually some really good tricks of this trade, to know that our power supersedes all power of a corporate entity. So, with that being said, I'm just going to show you my little citations that I got. Now, one was for a stop sign infraction, and I made sure to go ahead and take pictures of these for my own records. This is what you do. I'm going to go through the whole process so that if you ever get a citation or you get pulled over, don't try to argue with the policy officer. He's there, he thinks he's doing the right thing. They're pretty much in the dark about what's actually happening. They don't know that they're on the other side of the fence, so to speak, that they're operating on behalf of a fraudulent government that has basically created treason to our de jure government, which we no longer have. It's not fully functioning yet. There are people that are trying to rebuild the government from the ground up. I'm actually kind of connected with some of these groups and just kind of keeping my eyes on things all around me. But what you can do is you can just tell them, be nice to them. Don't try to be belligerent. You can ask them, why they're detaining you. You can ask them, what's the emergency? Those kinds of questions will start, kind of putting them on notice that, hey, I know my rights. And they cannot search your vehicle without a warrant. And a warrant is just a bench warrant, which is a bank warrant, which is actually a fraudulent thing anyway. And even if you have a warrant out for your arrest, you can actually get out of it, especially if you pull yourself into the private sector through words. The common law words supersede all of theirs. It pulls you out of their jurisdiction and they have no power over you. So when you go to court, they're automatically assuming and presuming the jurisdiction. And this is what gets people messed up. They think that our government is operating as it should for the people, by the people, but it's not, because the people stopped self-governing. So what we do is we learn some stuff and we learn how much power that we have, and we pull that power back into our realm and we start self-governing. So this is how it's done. We have these corporate offers to contract, and corporations can only trick you by duress, by thinking that you are, have to pay these fraudulent fines, and they make you think that you have to sign your signatory, which is also a corporate word. We actually have autographs, just like these famous people out here, the ones in Hollywood that give their autograph. We have autographs because we live in a private area, of the world. Like, we're the ones with all the power, so we have an autograph. But a signature that you sign in cursive is going to be the corporate version of you. And a name is also a claim of ownership. So we have appellations and we have our autograph, and we drive in a, well, we don't drive, excuse me. We don't drive. Drive is also a legalese word to define a corporate entity that's operating in commerce. So we actually operate a private automobile in a private capacity. And you can also call it private conveyance. A lot of people are saying conveyance, even though it's really just operating your private automobile, which is not too bad to say. So let's just get into these contracts that we have. So this first one that I have, this big one, was actually 80 and a 55. And this was really, it was really a ridiculous situation. The officer obviously didn't care that this box truck was trying to basically keep me from passing him. It's one of those situations where you're passing someone because the lane opens up into two lanes. It's on a two-lane highway. The lane opens up into two lanes for you to pass. You start slowly passing, and the person starts accelerating, and then you start accelerating, and then they start accelerating, and then you start accelerating. Well, I just said, you know what, forget it. I'm going to nail it. I'm going to get in front of this guy, and I'm just going to continue on cruise control, which is what I was doing in the first place, passing this box truck that kept dropping down to 45. So anyway, they said that I was going 80. I don't think so. I think I hit about 75. But nonetheless, I got the ticket. And all I did was sign it under duress. And it doesn't show that on here, but this is the form that I actually returned to them. I wrote this on there because you can decline their offer, and you want to make sure it's in bold so that nobody can mistake what your claims are. And you're basically voiding the contract. So when you get handed the citation, you essentially just type it. Do not use cursive anymore because you're cursing yourself and others. Just type it out under duress. And then what you want to do, you can also put no contract under that. And when you put under duress, you can also put UCC 1-308 to let them know that you know some stuff and you know your rights as a private man or woman. You're not a person, you're not a resident, you're not a driver, you're not an individual. These are all corporate words. And so what you're going to do is you're going to mail this little thing back with a green card. And I'm going to go over that in just a minute because I have all these instructions. That way you can come back to this video. If you ever get a citation, which is an offer to contract with a corporation, you will know exactly what to do. And so anyway, what I wrote on here, and this was from some of David Straight's information, and it did work. This whole thing was thrown out, and they just pretended to throw it out because he's like, oh, the officer that gave you this citation isn't here anymore. And it wasn't even a judge that was doing all this stuff. It was a district attorney, and he was in the records office. He was like in the file room, which is a vault inside this, building. It's one of the older buildings in Forsyth, Georgia. And I was confused because it really wasn't court. So I knew absolutely it was completely fraudulent, every little aspect of it, even what they were doing. So our court system is changing, just so you guys know. There was no judge to be found. So anyway, it says your offer to contract is not accepted. While traveling in a private manner, my private automobile, you operate under Title 18, Section 241 and 242 as a conspiracy to deprive me of my rights under the color of law, because that's exactly what they're doing. It's called under the color of law. Instead of calling it an outright lie, they write this, flowery language to make it not seem so bad. But it's lies, it's deceit, and it's deceptive practices. But they're not telling you that, and then just like trying to have some sort of honor and not be derogatory, I guess. So no contract, null and void, and I put the date there. So we'll go over how to do that process, but this is just an example. Now, more recently, I had gotten a traffic citation in my town. And this was ridiculous because I had just come out of the bank, and the bank has a side road that goes out onto a main road, which is still small. Like there's not a whole lot of traffic. I don't live on a busy city or anything. So I pull up to the stop sign. I stop. I look to my left. No one's coming. I'm turning right. So I stop. I look, and then I look to the right and I go. So it wasn't long enough for this officer that I've met in my town before. I met him in the coffee shop. He's a jerk. And he basically was like, I'm officer so and so. And I was like, are you kidding me? I know who you are. Like, why are you pretending? He knows that I do murals in my town, and everybody's been talking about this stuff. So anyway, I've talked to him a few times. He acted like he didn't know me. He's like, well, I'm going to have to give you a ticket. I'm like, okay, fine, give me a ticket. And guess what? I'm signing it under duress. There's what I did right there. And now you can see what it looks like. You just write under duress right there. And then you go, see citation. I also sent another little letter just stating some stuff. You don't have to do that. You can just put it like this and that's it. So just write in big, bold letters, no contract. Use red because red is blood, number one, and red is very hard to miss. So I do not accept this offer to contract. I do not consent to these proceedings. And they go, oh, okay. That's all you got to do. And then let's go over the procedure. Now, this is the document. Let's take this to court. And all courts are operating in a fraudulent manner on behalf of the bankrupt federal corporation called the United States instead of our de jure government. They trick people into paying false fines by designating the jurisdiction before holding court. This jurisdiction is based on corporate laws, and they are accessing a commercial trust in your birth name that is on your birth certificate that you never knew you had. Men and women operating in a private manner in their daily lives are not corporate entities. If you're contracting with a corporation, if you're working for one, you are corporate under their rules while you're working for them because you're operating in commerce. But after you're done, you're operating in your private life in a private capacity. So that's what you need to know. Using common law words and phrases brings you out of the corporate jurisdiction of water and places you back on dry land away from maritime laws. So maritime admiralty laws are laws that govern commercial vessels, and they've brought their commercial vessel laws onto the lands and have blanketed over our laws under the color of law. And they're not our laws. And that's just that simple. And it's so simple. Once you get this power, you're going to be like, oh my God, none of this stuff matters anymore unless you do harm to someone. That's the only time that they can really come in and start enacting something, towards you. But if you have done no harm and you've not violated any of the common laws, then you're good to go. I mean, you can do burnouts in the middle of the street, honestly, but I don't recommend it. But that might be where we're going with all of this once we get to the other side. When the criminals find out about this stuff, it's going to be a different world because we're going to have to govern the criminals and not these other corporate entities because they're not gonna hold up. It's private manner. So you never understand a judge or a court representative or a police officer or, the sheriff or whatever. You don't understand them ever. Never understand anybody. It places you under their boots or basically under their authority, and they will thereby stand over you. They use many words to trick people into their jurisdiction. It's called legalese. Never state that you are the name that they call when you're in court. If they call you forward, just stand up and state some stuff. And I'm going to give you that in a minute. Do not even answer to that name. It's a corporate version of you. They created a corporation in our name most people don't know about. A name is a corporate word. We were given appellations when we were born, but do not use your birth name ever. Our names are supposed to be John of the House of King and whatever, it's supposed to be Ellen of the House of King or whatever your last appellation is. That's the surname that labeled you a corporation as well. This is all the tomfoolery trickery that we've been under for so long, and we're just now awakening to all of this hoodwink and swindle. We no longer use proper English. The best we can do is learn which words to use and not use, and then use silence as your best defense. Once certain sentences are stated, all one has to do is stand in silence. This is all you have to do. If you ever go to court and you just state your first three sentences, that shuts everything down. And if the judge continues to get belligerent or angry or whatever, you just stand there and you look at them. And when they're quiet, you just keep repeating the sentences over and over. And they are not going to be able to move you as long as you don't get rattled. You can just stand there and look at them like they're a fool. And then you stand there calmly and you say, I do not consent to these proceedings, and I do not consent to be surety for these proceedings. And they may go wild, they may explode, who knows? But it doesn't matter, because that is power. Your voice is power when you use these words over them. So once certain sentences are stated, all one has to do is stand in silence and waiting for your demands to be met. You can own a courtroom with some of the stuff that I've learned. Proceed as thus. When an officer issues a citation or you receive a citation in the mail, do not sign anything with your appellation. A name is a claim of ownership. Instead, sign any citation that requires a signature with under duress and hand it back after signing. If given by an officer, take your copy and write in red, no contract. Your offer to contract is not accepted. Take a picture of it and send the contract back in the mail within 3 days, which is 72 hours. This is a law that you have for any contract. It can be rescinded within 72 hours by the Truth in Lending Act. And as long as you go to the post office within that time frame and get this green card, it's a return receipt requested. And that's what this says right here. After receiving it via return receipt requested, the green card from the post office that proves you mailed it back on a certain day and that they also received it on a certain day. That's your information. Is very important to take that card when it gets mailed back to you and hold on to it. Put it in a file somewhere with all these other documents that go with all this legalese crap, because it's going to be your proof that they've received it and that you mailed it within a certain time frame, and they can't denounce it. Once a green card comes back, you're now ready to approach the administration office of the county where you received the ticket and show them your response. You do not have to wait for the court date, but you can, like what I try to do is I go in the courtroom because I want people to actually see and witness the proceedings that happen because I'm starting to make a show out of this. My second time that I went was a show. And I told everybody in the room, I said, oh, this is good. This is going to be good. I want everybody to see what happens to me. And people are looking at me like, what in the world? Is she crazy? And I was like, I want to go first. And the bailiff actually said, if anybody wants to go first, sit in the front row. So I shot my hand up and I said, me. And I got up and I rushed over to the front row and my friend came with me. So it's a good idea to take a jury of your peers with you to witness, to bear witness to whatever they do, because they might be trying to shady, kind of shady. They're trying to do things to you and trick you. They may lie or do some kind of swindle. You just want to make sure you got a witness to all their proceedings. So she gave me a W-9 form to request their EIN, their tax information, which, I've heard that they don't pay taxes. So I went ahead and I took that and I got in the line in front of the clerk of court because she was like, if anybody wants to pay their fine, come on up. So I got up there and I gave her that form. Her eyes turned as big as saucers. And she was like, why are you giving me this? I don't need this. I said, I need your EIN. She's like, you need to take this to the office. Her eyes were huge. She's like, you need to take this to the office. And I said, but you're the bank teller. I need your identification numbers for my tax records, even though, that was all just a smoke and mirrors. It was a smoke screen, but I wanted to call her bluff. So she's like, no, you need to take this to the office. And I was like, okay. So, I turn around to go back and I was going to the administration office after all that proceeding. I go to sit down and then this other woman, she had gotten up, the court administrator or the clerk of court, she had gotten up and she had gone back to the back and she pulled this other lady forward who was looking at my file with the bailiff. And as I'm sitting down, all that's happening. And I sit down and this woman is standing there with my folder because she's looking at my folder. Then she's looking over at me. She looks down at my folder again. And the bailiff is like, I don't know, is she a lawyer? I heard him talking. He's like, I don't know, is she a lawyer? And the woman goes, Ellen King. So I stood up, and the first thing I threw my arm up in the air and I said, I do not consent to these proceedings, and I do not consent to be surety for these proceedings. And she goes, hold up, as she holds her hand up in the air and she snaps her fingers together. And she goes, I'm going to bind you right now because they use black magic and they use black magic spell casting through spelling and legalese. And she's like, I'm going to bind you with invisible robes. And, this is what I already know because she's using all these, words of black magic spell casting. I'm going to bind you with invisible robes and invisible gag. And she said, we're going to reschedule your court date. And I was like, oh, really? And I'm just sitting there smiling, as I'm standing there. And I'm like, oh, okay. you know. And I was like, all right then. So, am I free to go? She's like, yes, you can go. And I turned to the crowd and said, if you guys only knew that what I knew, you would not be sitting here. And the bailiff was like, you're excused from the courtroom. Keep walking. He was being nice, but they didn't want me in their courtroom. And ever since that day, I never heard from them. I never got anything in the mail. I did take the W-9 over to the administration office right away because I was like, no, we're going to handle this. I'm going to demand that they give me an EIN. So I took it over there and I said, hey, I need somebody to sign this and I need an EIN. And the woman was like, well, the clerk of court's in court right now. And I said, well, if that was the person I was supposed to give this to, she didn't want it. I said, so whoever needs to sign this and give it back to me. And I left my address, my phone number, everything. They never contacted me. I've never been pulled over for any reason. I don't have warrants. I don't have it because they know that they're operating in a false capacity. And this is being perpetuated in every city across this country and even around the world. And because we're not standing in our power and doing anything about it, it continues. The theft and the piracy continues because we, the people, are not governing our world. We are disempowered because we have no knowledge of such things and how the world truly works through these certain laws. There's a hierarchy of law and there's a hierarchy of power. And right now we're not standing in it. And it's a problem. But yet people want to continue to point fingers and point blame and not do anything. And that irritates me very much. That's because I can't stand lies. And as the lies continue, it makes me frustrated because people think that you're crazy when you try to tell them about this stuff, about how much power we actually have. And they're like, oh no, you're crazy. I'm like, you have no idea. The IRS is a fraudulent entity. It's a private bank on a private island, out there in Puerto Rico. So all this stuff is perpetuated because we're not doing anything about it because we don't know what to do about it. And a lot of people think that, everybody else is crazy. So I'm trying to put this out here. Look, it can be just this simple. Learn this little bit. It'll give you a little fire to add to your whole genre. And then once you get through this, you're like, oh my God, that was so easy because the truth is easy. Truth is easy. You stand on the ground and you tell the truth instead of climbing up the trees and trying to tell the lies because it's a lot harder to do that. And once people see how this actually operates, now once you can prove it to people, it's like, now let's get on board the train. The truth train is here and it's got enough space for all these passengers. We got a whole bunch of empty seats and we need more passengers to get on board so that we can take this train for a ride and take this false government for a ride and start really putting in the laws that govern all of these abominations that we're seeing with all the cameras and invasion of privacy. Look, all we need is us to collaborate. But we need more people that are like, yeah, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to be the one who steps into my power to actually do something. Learn something. Take your power back, even with your smart meters, with your smart everything, because they're invading our lands. We have pirates upon the lands. They're spreading all of their lies and all of their authority for the future control system. We have the power to stop it right now, but we have to step up with others who are teaching all these methods. That's all we have to do. People are already paving the way. All you got to do is join in. Just jump on the train. It's already there waiting for you at the station. There's always a seat available on this train. So essentially, you want to go to court prepared. So you bring your birth certificate, which is your corporate version, and your certified mail receipt for proof of having that green card returned. And also, if you have a copy of your ticket, just print it out. Basically, you take a photo of it and you bring that too. This is all the stuff you have to do because you're going to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that you are who you say you are, and you're about to take them for a ride. And you're gonna pistol whip them with some words, essentially, because that's what you do. You're playing games in a court because that's what courts are for. You play ball in a court, right? You play tennis, you play basketball. Well, guess what? This is a game of words. And once you realize the rules to the game and which words not to use, it becomes so easy. So you learn just a version of which words to use, which words not to use. And you're like, okay, let's go. Let's go toe to toe and let's try these things. And it becomes so easy, really. And it's so empowering when you realize that we hold all the cards and they've just been like, they've been doing all the bluffs. They've been blowing smoke and illusions. and we have all the power. It's our land. It's our land, air, and water. And we have things that we've never met before that are portraying themselves as human. They're out here in our government system. This is what's really happening. That's what they're preparing us for with this truth train that's coming. That's why it's a slow drip, but it states it in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean that the reptilian-headed beings crept into the councils to rule over men, and guess what? They start leading everybody astray, and they start turning it into a train wreck. And why do you think there's all this human trafficking? Because they're not human. Humans don't normally eat humans. So when you do start eating humans, which is what pork is, pork has the genetics of humans. That's why we can take hearts and organs from pigs and put them in humans. That you actually start allowing these entities into your form. It does something to your auric field. It's like some sort of code. You're not supposed to eat your own kind. There are spiritual laws at play. These are also some of the natural laws, and we've been breaking them because we don't know them. So I'm here to try to learn some stuff on my own and then hand it off to people, because we're going to have other people who come after us in the future, and they're going to need to know some of this stuff. Okay, well, let's continue because I want to get through this and then you guys can have it. This will be in your repertoire of things. I do recommend saving this video somewhere in your files. Create a folder labeled law, like I've done. Like, you can go into all my playlists and you can see literally everything that I've been researching, because I save a bunch of stuff and I've got a plethora of information. If you know how to do that, I mean, basically, we've got the Library of Alexandria at our fingertips. And if you're not using it to sort of elevate your consciousness, then I don't know. You're lost in Disney World, maybe. I don't know. We need more people who are actually going to participate in lifting the veil from all of us everywhere, who's helping to try to bring this great awakening into a greater fruition, because it's kind of slow right now and I'm getting a little frustrated myself. I'm like, let's hurry up and get on with this. We've got 2 years before they really start hitting us and pummeling us with some truth. So let's get ready for what's coming, because we got to rebuild our government system because it's a runaway freight train. Okay, so you're bringing your birth certificate, your certified mail receipt, and your copy of your ticket. The letter with "I do not consent to no contract, no contract," you can type up something too. It's kind of like an affidavit. If you make an affidavit, it's actually very powerful. It's basically like, this is my truth. And truth supersedes all lies, so they can't negate it. Also, bring the following document to remind the judge and the court petitioners that they are acting as pirates upon the lands. There's a link here. This is esotericknowledge.me, why your legal name is written in all capital letters. Again, I can leave these links in the description box so you guys can have it. More evidence of this is sovereignspiritalliance.org. We are considered sovereign, but the proper word is sovereign. It actually supersedes sovereign. Sovereign is kind of like a lord, so it's somebody that rules over someone else, and that's not really what we want to be. Okay, the judge representing the court has to establish jurisdiction over you in order to play ball with you. See how I did that? Because that's what that is. So it's essentially, they need your consent in order to enact and enforce their will upon you. But if you don't consent, guess what? They don't have anything. They don't have a leg to stand on. So, for the judge, if either party refuses to participate, these courts cannot become involved, and the dispute is dead in the water. The use of the term "dead in the water" is not canard, because these pseudo courts are unconstitutional courts of admiralty, the international law of the sea. This is from Pisces. you know, like Lord of the Sea, Law of the Sea. The pseudo judges of these pseudo courts have no powers without the consent of both the plaintiff and the defendant. And in every case, the judge must determine that he has consent, personam, which is a corporate word, and subject matter jurisdiction before he can act or access the Sesta Q trust. The Sesta QE trust is the birth certificate trust that was made in our name when we were born, and it is connected to the dead version of you, the corporate corpse oration version, because it's the placenta. You didn't know that you had a dead version of yourself, but you do. However, if you do not wish to be presumed dead, suffering judgment, you must establish your living rights. Otherwise, you will simply have no rights. This is why they summon you from the dead to appear as a spirit or a soul before court. And the judge who will judge you because he represents Saturn. That's why he wears a black robe. He's a black magician of Saturn's law. The maxim of law, one who does not establish their rights has none, no rights. And tacit agreements, which are silent agreements, when you are silent to something, it's like giving consent. It's kind of crooked, and I guess they considered us silent when we were born, even though we didn't know anything was happening. They tricked our parents, and it is a massive swindle. The following phrases have the power to stop any court proceeding. Surety means you will not be the insurance policy to give them access to your trust that you didn't know you had. By the way, we're sitting here as millionaires and didn't know it. They are the ones who were supposed to swear oaths to uphold truth and justice as civil servants. We are not required to have oaths that are used as bonds or surety to protect others, but civil servants are required to do so. Demanding their bond be brought forth means you're demanding to see their oath bond, an insurance policy that covers people who may be damaged from their actions. And some of these characters do not have bonds or oaths. Indemnify means you want to see who is going to ensure that you are protected and covered financially if you are damaged by inappropriate or unethical actions that happen to you during any proceedings, or even with the policy pushers, the pirates in their cars with their blue lights, the blue lights representing the sea, the waters. Yeah, this is what they do. Say this. Now, these sentences will shut it down. Repeat these sentences and stand on your square. You are in the court of Saturn, so everything is about squares and about law and about judgments. So Saturn is the ruler of Earth plane, and everything in Saturn's realm requires a contract, and that's why we're going through these different phases. Look up the attributes of Saturn and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. When they call your name, you do not say anything other than this. Do not ask or answer the judge in any capacity when they say, "Is your name?" Do not respond to that. They're trying to trick you to contract with them. Any kind of questions should be withheld the answer, because you are about to establish where your standing is. And it's very important to do this off the bat when you enter any court case. When you do this proceeding, it places you firmly in the jurisdiction of common law. And I cannot express this enough, that common law supersedes all of the corporate jurisdictions that they're going to try to file you in. Once you enter the courtroom, if you state that you are that name, you are now bound by a contract to be the corporate version of you, the corporate person or personam, and representing a corporation, which you are not. That is a lie. So we must be truthful and honest and uphold honor. And so we don't even call these people your honor because they are in dishonor. You can call them by their last name or their first name. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you remain in honor while you're approaching this sort of proceeding. Anytime you're in the courtroom, just stand in honor. Doesn't require any emotion. So, first, I do not consent to these proceedings. Your offer to contract is not accepted. I do not consent to being surety for this case and these proceedings. I demand the bond be immediately brought forth so that I can see who will indemnify me if I am damaged. Stand on these 4 sentences and do not stop or back down when they are trying to dissuade you or redirect you into other questions or other things. I have not had that problem yet, but I already know this is a script and you are an actor. And these are the lines that you are supposed to say and no other. And that's what it is. So you are always a living man or a living woman. You're not a person. You're not a resident. You're not an individual. All of these things, there's a lot of words out here that will trick you into a contract that you don't know about. Do not acquiesce. Do not ever understand a judge because the judge will ask you, do you understand? No, never. You tell them, no, I do not understand. And then they're going to, duck and dodge. Some of them, they say some of them are just, really insidious. Like they'll, even try to, if it's something more serious, a more serious kind of case that they're trying to get somebody hooked on, they will actually take them downstairs. They'll have the bailiff take them downstairs, which is a false arrest. But if you have all this other stuff set in place before all that kind of stuff happens, you can actually sue them. But that's another process that I'm doing right now. But for this, if they take you downstairs into their little holding cell or whatever, you just wait, la 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 la, sing, whistle, whatever, and then they bring you back up and they're trying to get you to consent to contract again, and you just stand in these 4 sentences. No, I do not consent to contract. I do not understand you, and I do not consent to contract, and I do not consent to these proceedings. Eventually, they will have to acquiesce and back down. That's how serious this is. This is some serious power. I'm like, this is going to change a lot if we can get a lot more people on board with this knowledge. But most people are just showing up, they're getting these citations by these policy pushers, and they're just showing up for court and they're just paying their fines. This is what's gone wrong with the world. It's like we've been just paying this machine, and this machine has gotten out of control. And now it's gotten too big for its britches, but it's time to make the giant fall. So I'm just going to finish with this. You are always a living man or a living woman and never the dead legal fiction corporate name that was assigned on the birth certificate. Pirates have come upon our shores and have blanketed false accusations and fraudulent practices upon every living being that resides within a bankrupted corporate nation operated by the central banking cartels. If a judge ignores you and continues after repeating several times, state no contract and no consent was stated upon the contract and sent via certified mail. The Federal Truth and in Lending Act provides that any party to a contract may rescind his consent within 3 business days of entering into such a contract. And then there's more proceedings if it continues. So, I have all of the remedy for all of this stuff. And I've learned some things and I've used it, and it's absolutely 100% the truth. So I just wanted to give you guys this little information, and I'm putting it out there for everybody to learn some stuff and to take it away, because it's time to take our world back. So there you go. There's my gift to you and to all of the rest of the people out there in the world. Share this video with as many people as possible, and I'll see you guys on the next one.